Hi, a couple of years ago I started getting into D&D. As my passion for D&D grew, so did my collection of minis, and like many others out there, I now have boxes of shame, legions of unpainted minis. Now this is my underdog story. This is me painting every single one of my miniatures. Hi guys and gals out there, today I'm going to paint the Grim Reaper from Pathfinder Battles. It's from Wizkids Deep Cuts line. I really liked this model and I have some ideas for it. So first let's unbox this little nice miniature, and like all of the miniatures from Wizkids, they come pre-primed. Now, one of the things that I found was particularly interesting with this miniature was this transparent sort of holder. I didn't want to have any paint on it, so the first thing I needed to do was to mask it off, and there's different masking putties I know on the market, but I don't have any of that, so I went with plain old common masking tape. And I went in there thinking, this will be easy, I'm just gonna put it over there, and yeah, eventually I learned that, you know what, this became sort of too difficult. I even used tools and stuff, but I had to actually slice down the width of the tape in order to make it a little bit easier to actually mask some of the specific details of this transparent, well, what do you call this? Transparent holder, or whatever it's called. So eventually I got all of the tape, where it should be. And once I had the tape there, I figured I would do some minor cleaning. There were some mold lines, not a whole lot. A lot of them were sort of covered by the actual creases that the clothes of the Grim Reaper. But some I had to clean off, you can see here. And when you do this, you can use different kinds of tools. I happen to have my hobby knife close by. Just be very careful when you do this, because these things are sharp, and one mistake and you might cut yourself. So just to clean up some of the leftovers that might be there from cleaning the mold lines, I just use a toothbrush just to brush everything off. I Zenithal primed this with black and then from above white, and as you can see, my transparent pillar did not take any paint. Thankfully it was protected. So the first color I went with was Army Painter's Dark Sky. I knew that I wanted the Grim Reaper to be blue, dark bluish, and like you can see here, I am going to dilute the paint quite a lot, because what I'm after is almost, I guess you could call it a glaze, but also a wash. Now glaze is usually you want to wipe off the excess liquid, which I do not do here for the simple reason that I want this paint to try to sort of run all over the model and actually get into the nooks and crannies, the creases in his nice costume. And as you can see, it goes on pretty nice, and you can actually see through the Zenithal sort of highlighting. So this sort of paint job is really, I think, good when you've done a Zenithal, and on this figure in particular, I felt like the Zenithal came to its right, so to speak. So I'm just going over and not being too careful at this point. I mean, I'm aiming, as always, for tabletop ready. As you can see also, I am using, I'm not sure if the sizes translate, but this is a number 4 hobby brush, so it's quite a large brush. It holds lots of paints just to make it a little bit easier to actually apply the paint to the model. Eventually all of the clothes of the Grim Reaper were covered, and I just went over and made sure that none of the colors, none of the paint separated, because that's one danger when you're using a lot of water, is that the actual color might start to almost like separate. Now the second color I went for was from Vallejo color Beastie Brown. I decided to use this watered down as well, but not nearly as much because I needed a little bit more control with this. I decided to go with this light sort of woody color for the actual scythe, the wood on the scythe there. And even with this one, just thinning it out enough so that I can sort of get a hint of more vibrant colors on one side of the scythe, and then more sort of dulled down, darker colors on the shadow side. Now once that was done, I decided to go in with some black color, just some black color from normal, any black color will do, but I think this was from Vallejo as well. I wanted to have some black color to create a foundation for the actual metal parts of the scythe, because I knew I wanted to use true metallic paints, and usually what I've heard and I've also tested is that true metallic paints ideally should have a dark foundation. They simply put, they just, they shine a little bit extra. You remember when I used that color shifting paint for my Umber Hulks? Now one thing, I decided once this had dried, I wanted to actually darken up the blue a little bit. So I took a little bit of the black I had on the palette, on the wet palette, and mixed it in with the existing dark sky, and sort of just trying to sort of dull everything down, because I thought his clothes was a little bit too, well, honestly, too happy and not nearly sort of messed up enough. I wanted some sort of a little bit more darkness in his clothes. Now also in this model, and I sort of like this, the face of a Grim Reaper is literally just a flat surface, so I wanted to make sure that that was black, so I just went in there and penciled in some black details on his face. And this is what it looks like, still wet, but you can see that some of the highlights are letting through. This is what it looks like when it's all dry, and I'm happy with it, but I wanted to do some sort of, I wanted to bring, I guess, a little bit warmer tone to the actual color, so and also dull it down a little bit more and darken those recesses. So I went in with some Derici Violet from Citadel, which is a wash. So this one will help me try to define sort of the shadowy areas and make him look a little bit more sinister and dark, because remember, this is death. It's no nice monster to encounter. That's what it looks like, and I think also the wash helps me to bring all of the color variations together much more, and it feels much more cohesive, but I can still see that, you know, the top of his head, his shoulders are lit. So time for the scythe and the metal. I just decided to use some gun metal, which is from Army Painter, which is the dullest metal I have. And you might ask yourself, why, Leif, would you use a dull metal? Well, I'll get to that. So I wanted to just make a nice sort of even base coat of, like I said, the most, I guess, dark silvery metal I had, which happened to be gun metal. So I'm just putting in those details, and now I'm gonna let that dry for some time. So next up, I used Army Painter's Shining Silver, which is one of the brightest true metallic colors I have. Now, what I wanted to achieve was that the actual sharpened edge of the scythe would sort of have a little bit more luster on it, so it would you know, pop essentially a little bit. So I tried this, and this was actually among the first times I've tried to mix two true metallic colors in order to achieve an effect of well, I guess the edge of the scythe. While the actual scythe was drying, I decided to go in with some heavy sienna. This is one of the heavy opaque colors, and I just wanted to paint the base with brown colors just to sort of have some sort of foundational color there. But this is interesting. This project, more than any of my projects before, is a lot of back and forth. So here you can see that I'm happy with this base. I'm thinking everything is fine. This is what it looks like now with when it's dried. At this point, I'm gonna go in with some Agrax Earthshade on the actual terrain. And the funny thing here is this, you'll see soon, but this is so unnecessary. This is totally unnecessary, but I didn't know this at the time. So you're gonna see me, well, let's say, see some of my mistakes. When I had the Agrax Earthshade, you know, popped open, I decided also to just, you know, put a little bit of wash on the actual wooden parts of the scythe. Now, this had dried, and you can see I'm thinking here what I should do, but I'm sort of, you know, tabling that for a later problem. First, I use some off-white color, and then I mix that with some of the Beastie Brown, I guess it is, to just sort of create a brighter tone. And I wanted to just pencil in some highlights on the actual wooden part of the scythe. Now next I decided to go with Army Painter's hemp rope, because I saw that there were some actual, what looks to be some sort of rope details holding the actual scythe together with some of the wooden parts. Not sure how accurate that is, but hey, this is a fantasy game, so screw that. I just wanted them to have some sort of a different color, just so they were visible. Now, I used Army Painter's Gorgon hide. I wanted a pale sort of purple blue color for his hands. His hands are the only actual visible part of his body, so I just painted them in a color that I decided looked kind of like death, to be honest. So pale white bluish color. And which I thought sort of made the hands also pop. So at this point, I decided that, you know what, that tape has been there long enough. I tried to remove it, and you're only going to see a couple of cuts here, but that was actually quite difficult. But eventually I got all of it off, And yeah, to my surprise, I don't think I got that much paint on that, which was nice. It worked. So with the blade of the Scythe, I didn't think it had nearly enough definition or grime or dirt, so I went in with some Nuln oil washes and just sort of laid it here and there on the actual blade. Now again, with the Drychu Violet, I decided to use that to sort of give that sickly pale tone on his actual fingers, once that had dried, of course. And I really liked this effect. It comes across as someone who is very, very, has very bony and thin fingers, but it's not skeletal, it's still some sort of flesh. Now meanwhile, I got inspired, so I made out of some popsicle sticks a simple cross, because I had an idea at this point. I used some of the leftover browns and blacks to sort of darken it down a little bit, and then I put that to the side while I glued the miniature to its base. As always, I'm using Gorilla Glue, super glue. I just like it because it's a little bit stickier than most super glues. So it seems like the actual it sticks quicker than most glues. At this point, while the base is sort of the glue of the base is drying, I just decided to pencil in some minor highlights on his hood. I wanted the edge of the hood to pop, so some edge highlighting here and there. Then I actually went back in with shining silver just to re-emphasize that edge, that sharp edge on the Scythe. So I just decided to go, and leave that unwashed, so to speak, so it would look like he's sharpening his Scythe. Now I just took some of that brighter brown for the cross and just did a heavy overbrush on the actual cross, and then I mixed in some white while with the same brush, while also having some brown still left there, and you end up with a mixture of those two. And I just did, you can see that I'm going sort of from a above position downwards, just to sort of try to just hit the edges of it. And that's the cross, what it looks like now. Now, here comes my idea. I used Vallejo Thick Mud. It's a sort of a texture paste. I used this to cover the entire foundation of the base. Good job, Leif. Yeah, Darwin Awards goes to you. Now, as I said, I got inspired, and I realized that if I'm going to put this cross down, I need some sort of volume to do it. So that's why I went with this Vallejo texture paste. And I really recommend this product because it's awesome if you just want to, make it easy to make your bases a little bit cooler. There's, of course, various amounts of ways how to do basing a little bit cooler, but I was fairly satisfied with this. So with this, let's have a look at how it turned out. Alright, guys and gals out there, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Tell me also in the comments, what's your situation? Do you have boxes of shame filled with miniatures that haunt your dreams? And also, as a final thing, I want to give a shout out to my good friend Ludwig Kullberg. It's his music that you heard in the beginning of this video. I'm going to link down in the description to his YouTube. He's a very talented musician that deals with, I think it's called ambient music. I'm not a music expert myself, I just know that I really enjoy his sound, and do me a favor and check him out. Alright, I hope you have a good day. Toodaloo.